Hello, everyone. My name is Julie McVey, and this is Unordinary Made Ordinary, where we talk about extraordinary experiences of everyday people. And today, our guest is Jennifer Dean. Welcome, Jennifer.
Hi, thank you for having me on.
So glad you are here. We are going to have a wonderful conversation. I'm very excited about it. And just to start us off, if you wouldn't mind, Jennifer, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I am a pediatric Reiki nurse. I live in New Jersey. I have a 5-year-old son named Declan, and he's my best friend. He's my world, pretty much. I do that, and I run a Facebook page called Mystical Mama. So it's kind of like everything, like my mysticism and my motherhood all wrapped into one. So
Nice.
yeah, thank you.
Would you mind telling me, did you grow up, I'm just curious, did you grow up religious or spiritual? I usually ask that question also in the beginning of the interview, just to see if it's connected to things that have happened to you.
I definitely grew up in a very Irish Catholic family. My family in particular were like kind of loosely Catholic, we'd make it there on like the holidays type of a thing. We did get involved with the church when I was diagnosed with leukemia. So when I got sick, we were involved with the church. So, I was 13. So I, had gone to CCD and whatnot. Had done my Holy Communion, been baptized. So yeah, my family was pretty much with the Catholic Church. I was growing up, raised Catholic.
We're going to talk about your near-death experience in just a moment. And you're kind of young, but before then, had you experienced any kind of supernatural, paranormal, anything like that experiences in your life?
Before then, I don't believe I had before then.
Okay.
I had a lot of anxiety. You know what I mean? I think I was probably an empath as a kid, but I hadn't had any paranormal experiences that I can remember, but then again, well, once you hear my story, you'll understand.
Okay.
Yeah, it could be just blocked memories, like in there that I just can't remember anything before what happened. But, I don't remember having any kind of paranormal experiences beforehand, before my NDE.
Okay. Would you mind, Jennifer, just kind of walking us through that, lead us up to it, and then maybe walk us through your NDE?
Sure. So I was diagnosed with acute lymphocytic leukemia when I was 13 years old, and that was 1995. So I underwent aggressive chemotherapy treatments, and part of the protocol, or part of the treatments, was intrathecal chemotherapy, which is chemotherapy that goes into the spinal fluid. So it's injected through a spinal tap. And I would get that like every week, and it was horrible. But one day I was just sitting there waiting to go in for my first round of radiation to my brain, which I was rolled over from. I was in Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, and I was rolled in a wheelchair from there over next door to the University of Pennsylvania Radiology Center to get my first round of radiation to my brain. And as I was sitting there waiting to go in, I was the next patient. I was with my mom, and I was sitting there eating candy, and all of a sudden I couldn't hold my head up. It started falling to the left side. Then my arm went, then my leg went, and I looked at my mom like, something's wrong. And I said, I don't know what's wrong, but something's wrong. And she said my mouth was drooping. She was a home health aide, so she immediately ran and got the nurse. She said, my daughter's having a stroke, because it looked like a stroke. It looked like I was having a stroke. And they wheeled me back over to the hospital and, rushed me upstairs. And when my doctor came in, he looked frightened, like he had saw a ghost. Like I remember him pulling that curtain back and looking at me, and I was like, oh no. And I could still speak at this point, but it was slurred speech. But I asked him, am I going to die? And he said, I don't know. And I was just like, okay, because he'd never seen that before. He was in shock. It was a very rare adverse reaction where the chemotherapy they were injecting into my spinal fluid attacked my brain. So it threw me into, they called it leukodystrophy back then. It's called methotrexate induced leukoencephalopathy is actually the name of it now.
Okay.
Back 20 years ago, it only happened to like a few people or like 8 people in the US, 8 children who were going through these chemotherapy treatments for leukemia. And it happened to this severe to 8 people, but they never came out of it. And I had just looked like I had a stroke. So the doctor was like, you're really lucky you didn't get that radiation treatment, because had you gotten that, it would have burned it right into your brain and you'd have no hope. You'd never come out of this. And I was just like, something definitely intervened. You know what I mean? It was just so close. And, as soon as I was just like, when the doctor looked scared, I immediately just wasn't afraid anymore. I was okay with dying. I was okay with whatever came next. If that meant I die, then that's okay. Like, I've been going through a lot of painful treatments too. So I would say in the first month of my treatments, I was 13, so I didn't understand what leukemia was or what chemotherapy was, Okay. It was a month in after I got these heavy duty treatments that I realized that I think I'm going to die. Like, I got my parents' angel pins because I said, if I die, I'm always with you. Like, I felt it coming. And 7 months later, I had this happen to me. So I did have it. I knew I was going to die. I did. I just so that side went out. The doctor told me all this. I just had a whole new faith of like something saved me. My left side started to come back to the point where I could eat again, because I when you are paralyzed, even on any side or both, you can't swallow. You don't have a gag reflex. Okay. So they wouldn't let me eat solids. And so this me looking like I had a stroke only lasted for like a day, I guess, and it reversed. So as I was eating my lunch, I had carrots on my tray, and I was watching a movie with my father in my hospital room. And I went to swallow the carrot, and I almost choked, and I coughed it up, and I was okay. But I said to my dad, it's happening again. But he said my eyes were like filled with tears, and I was just shaking, and he couldn't make out what I was saying, but I was like shaking, and then I was out. So the chemotherapy wasn't done attacking my brain. And it hit me even harder this time. And I slipped into a vegetative state where I was fully aware, but unable to communicate or anything. Like, nobody knew that I was fully aware. I think that they thought I wasn't there, but I was totally fully clear and very confused. Like, I would slip out of consciousness and back into consciousness. And when I would, it was a severe brain injury. Like, when you have severe brain injury, the arms do this, the neck like goes back. It's a certain type of posturing that I had. And I would wake up and see my arms like this, which I actually had to have surgery on to open the contracture that I had after this happened. My arm would only bend like this because this attack I had, so I would wake up and I would see my body, and I would realize I can't communicate, and I'd be scared, and I'd be crying and crying because I was like fully aware that I'm locked in my body right now. I can't tell anybody anything right now. And so the last time I remember being aware is when they were trying to put me into the MRI machine to take an MRI in my brain to figure out what was going on. They'd already done spinal taps, which they wouldn't even sedate me for because they were afraid that I wouldn't come out of it. Like, they don't know where I'm at. They can't give me sedatives.
Yeah.
So as they put me in the MRI machine, they put like headphones on you because it's a loud banging, but the headphones had static coming through. So I'm laying in there with like a brain injury, and my dad's like in the room to the side waiting. And I start like losing it. Like, I'm listening to static. I wanted somebody to just take these off my head, but I couldn't say anything. Right. So, and I couldn't move. I couldn't talk. I couldn't scream. I just laid there crying. And I'm like, this is like hell. I mean, I would say if there's a hell on earth, it's going to be trapped in your body. Like, it could be scary. I mean, at least somebody who had the ability to do this stuff at first, it's so scary, So I just lay there, and I remember telling myself, like, move my feet. And I moved my foot, and my dad saw me move, and he said he saw tears flowing down my face, and he jumped up and started pulling me out of the machine. Like, so I told him to hold on. They got me out, sat me up. They brought like a dry erase board and a marker, and they were like, okay, go ahead and write down what you want to say. Like, I have all these doctors and nurses, my dad sitting me up, and I go to write, and my hand is locked like this, and I can't hold the pen. And then I just drop everything and cry, because I'm like, now this is my life. Like, I can't even communicate my most basic needs. And the next thing I remember after that, they brought me back to my room. I think they did redo that scan, but I don't know if they did it right away. But the next thing I remember is being in the void. Like, I was definitely slipping further away. I could feel it. It was like peaceful. It wasn't the scariness of coming back to a body that didn't work. It was this peace that I was in, like warm, like swaddled in the darkness. Like, that's the only way I can describe it. So it sounds as peaceful as that sounds. Like, imagine being swaddled by the darkness. A lot of people would say that being in the black void would be scary, but like, it was so peaceful. So then I that's all I remember, was being in the void. And then I woke up, and I'm looking around, and all of my family's around my bed saying goodbye to me. Like, aunts and uncles, cousins, grandmothers. My grandfathers were deceased, but they were definitely there. All my siblings, everybody, my parents, obviously, they're all around my bed saying goodbye. Like, I had already had my last rites and everything. And I remember waking up, and like, I could feel their fear. And I was like, don't be afraid. Like, I'm going to be okay. But I'm saying this in my head. I think I'm still so not aware of what I look like, because I'm not aware of my body at all. So, and I'm looking around, I'm like, I'm going to be okay, guys. Like, I'm going to be okay. You don't have to be afraid. Like, trying to comfort people, like, telepathically, because I still can't talk yet. But then I pulled around, and I came back. After that, I pulled through, and I had to, it took a little bit to get my speech back, and, walking and everything. And I made a full recovery. And the doctors say, like, that was a miracle, because the kids who had that side effect or adverse reaction happened to them to that severity never woke up. They're like, they were put in like homes, like they were telling my parents, they literally told my parents she'd be better off dead, and which they're not lying, I mean, if in that sense, I would definitely, but that would be a test. I wasn't given that test to come back and live in that body like that, because some people do have that, and they do live in a body like that. I've gone through other physical challenges, even after that. I still had like 18 months of my protocol left, so I still had to go through treatments of chemo, but it was always I always knew how, like, absolutely, I was so saved I knew I was saved by something. And my biggest thing was, I'm definitely not alone. I just kept hearing that. I am not alone. I am not alone. Like, that's all I kept hearing. So, and I made out from, after I woke up from that too, I was in a teaching hospital. So I had like residents come through. It was like a slew of doctors. And I remember thinking from that point, watching all these doctors, and, you know, when doctors come in, it's, you know, it's not like empathetic kind of, it's like, you know, 13-year or 14-year-old female with blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And we went through like, that's just what they do for school, you know, so you're aware of that. So I'm there all the time. But I remember thinking, with the amount of doctors that came through to see me and just look at me, because like they didn't know what just happened. Like, it was weird to them that I just woke up on my own. You know, they said they didn't give me anything. So, you know, it's pretty crazy they walk in and I'm sitting there thinking, like, I must be here to teach doctors. Like, maybe I'm here to keep their minds open. Right. So like, I was 13. So I was very, my mind was like so literal, or it was like, well, clearly I'm not my body, because my body didn't work, but my mind did. So that was just logical to me, but that actually is the message. So like, we are not our bodies, right? So that is the message. I just got it given to me in such a logical way, because that's what happened to me. So clearly, and nobody told me this. I never went into like spiritual communities. We never went back to church. I did things my own way. And even my father would say that I always knew what to do for myself. So that's the intuition, like just always being someone people could talk to, always want, like, I knew I was here to help people. And that's why, like, I went into the fields that I went into. You know, I started working in healthcare in like 2001, from the very start. So I love healthcare. You'd be surprised. I'm surprised that I even want to go into that field, considering what I've been through, but it's, you know, I can help a lot of people though. I feel like I can, and I work in pediatrics. So it's like, I can, you know, give back what I was taught.
Yes, absolutely.
But from the near-death experience, that like awoken me, or awoken. See, I keep saying that. I was, I think spiritually, I woke up, but it didn't come to me so quick like others, because I was so young when it happened. And it was very traumatic, because being the physical side of it, and that's the thing with near-death experiences, it's trauma. Like, there is beauty wrapped in the trauma. So you got to get through the trauma to like get to the experience and get the gifts. You have to heal the trauma of the experience to get the gifts. So, you know, it's really important to understand, to remember it, first of all. And I buried it because I was a kid. And when I got better, and I never wanted to go back to what I went through. You know, I just figured I'll go be a nurse. That's my way of like giving back. I don't really have to talk about what I ever went through.
Oh, yeah. Right. I was going to ask if when you got your voice back, did you immediately tell your parents about the void? And I was wondering if I could ask you a couple questions about the void.
Sure.
Do you know how long you were in the void?
I believe for 2 days, because it was 3 days total where I was out, and then I came back. My father tells me it was like 3 days. So I came back. It was 2 days Earth time. I mean, that's
2 days Earth time.
So it could be, you know, 20 years on an infinite level, like a universal time. It doesn't really like go together. So I mean, actually, when I gave birth to my son, and now, because I'm more like spiritually mature, like I get things more, and I've learned from so many different people, and I doing my Reiki master, you know, certifications and stuff like that. That has helped me to be more spiritual. So like when I had my son, it was a spiritual experience. I went back to the void. I'm not even like, as I was pushing him out, and they say it's like an out of body experience when you have a child during childbirth. And the nurse said on the count of 3, push. So I heard her say 1, and then I was done. And I was just in a peaceful void. And when I came back, she was like, good job. So she said 2, 3 and push, but I was not there to hear it. I wasn't there.
So that's interesting.
I can actually like gauge that. Whereas this was like, it could have been, I think it was 2 days that I was.
When you put, do you know how long you pushed? Was it just pretty quick?
It was quick. It was pretty quick.
Because sometimes it takes a while to, a lot of
pushing.
Yeah.
It's
I was just curious because I've interviewed people where their physical body continues to not function, like do things like fight back and right. fight for its own life while their spirit or their consciousness is out and just kind of watching, going, oh yeah, there's my body fighting, right. doing things.
Right. Like if they're in the hospital, like giving birth, or
I actually have not interviewed anybody, I don't think, that's experienced it during birth, but I've heard that not just near-death experiences, but trauma can cause the body to pop out. But one woman, for example, she was caught between horses, and she popped out before the real trouble started, and she saw her physical body screaming and yelling and maneuvering around, still trying to fight back, but her consciousness was outside of her body watching it.
Right. It's almost like spirit is saving you, like you're looking at it from a different perspective, so you can heal it in some way when you're healing.
So in the void, did you feel like you were physical? Did you feel like you had a solid body, or would you say you were more like a point of consciousness in the void?
I would say, more like energy, spirit, not physical, because my physical body was in a lot of pain.
But you didn't feel solid, like you don't remember feeling like a solid.
I felt like, say you're in a completely dark room, void of every amount of light, and you are just basically your eyes looking around going, what? Where am, like, you're just, I was kind of like, what is going, like, at first, but it was peaceful. It was a peacefulness that was so like warm.
Peaceful. Did you sense you were floating? Any kind of floating sensations?
Yeah, it did feel like floating.
Did. Oh, yeah. Okay. And no sound? You couldn't hear anything?
I didn't hear anything, no.
So it was vision.
It was completely,
feeling.
It was okay. Completely dark, but I could feel the love. I could feel the warmth, right? So I didn't have a body, but I could feel the warmth like you would feel it. It's like that love.
And you just wanted to stay there. Wild. Even that's interesting. Like nothing's going on, but it just felt like, oh, I could just stay here.
Yeah. And when I came back, I remember thinking I have to do good to go back to wherever I was. Oh. And that's why I started working like at the hospital to help people. You know what I mean? Like
you're like, I'm going to get back there.
Yeah, exactly. Even now, if I'm having a bad day, like I'll black out my whole room and just lay there. I mean, it's a smidge like that, but not even close. Like our bodies can't house the amount of love that you feel, when you are connecting with God in whatever way, even if it, even the love you feel for your child, that heart exploding love, like it's bigger than that too, so it's hard to put into words.
Yeah.
You
visited the void only that one other time during birth.
Giving birth when childbirth. I've had other spiritual experiences happen. But actually I lost a loved one in 2014. I got my nursing license, or I became a nurse in 2012, and everything was great. I lost a loved one in 2014, and it was like a big loss, big shock. Just, it was heartbreaking. And I fell into, like, because I had cancer, you can have like survivor's guilt from having cancer. Like you survived, but you see a bunch of people you knew die.
Right.
So like you think, why did I survive? And that was always my question. First, it was, why did I get cancer? Then I had the near-death experience. And then it was like, why did I survive? Why did I make it? So then this loss happens, and I like start losing my faith in God. It was just something I was falling,
Wow.
I was falling into a depression, but this just like kicked me down. Like I had been, I've been trying to have a baby. It wasn't working. It was taking years. I was watching everybody around me have kids, and it was just, I was getting upset. I was like, why? I've done everything I can. Why am I not getting this baby? Like, I don't understand. I'm getting frustrated because I want it on my time. That's not how it happens. But when I was going through all of that, the memory from my near-death experience came back. And I'm not even kidding you. I called my mom and dad immediately because they're still alive. I was able to tell them what I was trying to tell them that day when I wanted to tell them that the headphones were static was playing. And I like told my parents, and they're like, oh my God. Like it was crazy. It was a buried memory. And that's happened. It happens with childhood trauma. And honestly, I had lived the past 20 years. Like I was a happy-go-lucky person. Like I have a lot of fun. I think when you get in your 30s, life gets a little bit harder and more interesting. But I've always been happy-go-lucky, but I also actually only thought I had 20 years left because the doctors back then were like, you could live another 20 years. And that's like a long time back then for the type of cancer I had.
Really?
Living another 20 years would have been like, wow, And so once again, I was 14 years old. So I was like, so I only have 20 years to live. Like, so I have lived life to the fullest thinking I had 20 years. And I'm not kidding. I never talked to anybody about this. I was just like, first of all, I came out of that and I had so much fun in high school. Like I met the coolest people. I had a blast in high school. My 20s were so fun. 30s were awesome, but like I said, life gets difficult. You start losing people, things start happening. And I remember I was about to give up on the idea of even having a baby. Like, whatever, forget it, And like something, I remember I think it was an out-of-body experience. I'm going to call it that because this happened. I was laying on my couch in the living room. It was around Christmas time. So it's like a very open spiritual time of the year, right? Like around Christmas is very, very spiritual activity is heightened at that time. And I remember passed down the couch, and then I woke up in my kitchen and I was like, I think I'm on the couch though. And I was like, wait a minute. And then the person who had passed, who I had like fallen in such a dark, hole from, but I kind of had to start remembering what I'd been through, came to me, and I was like, just speechless. And there was no speech. There's no talking. It's just telepathy. So I heard, she hugged me and she said, thank you for all what you've done. And after she hugged me, like, I remember waking up on the couch knowing I'd just been hugged by an angel. And I was just crying, and I feel the peace flow all through me. And like 2 months later, I got pregnant with my son. And the thing was, it was like a download to my intuition, because all of a sudden I knew everything to do to get myself pregnant. Every meditation, hypnosis, I used everything, herbs, changed my diet, exercise, did this, did that. Like I went the holistic route because I figured, well, I've been through so much when I was a kid with all these meds. So let's go the holistic route to see if maybe that'll work.
Right.
And like, it was so crazy though, because I finally got this angel coming to visit me who healed me to understand that, like, it wasn't my time, it was the person I lost. It was their time, and now to get the help from that loved one while I'm still here on earth is just the best feeling, and So that was something that happened to me like long after the NDE. I have always had synchronicities, and like on Mystical Mama, I share, like, I'm not even kidding. I'll get synchronistic numbers all the time on my coffees from Dunkin' Donuts. And I'm like, how am I doing that? Like, it's like proof. Like, these are the weird things that happen. Just, I always know something before it happens, and I look crazy that I'm like, well, that's a nurse thing too. Like, nurses are pretty intuitive. That's,
I was wondering if you thought maybe from your NDE after sounds like you pushed that down for a long time, and somehow I'm curious to know how you kind of worked through the PTSD, the trauma of it all. And then you kind of embraced it. And at that point, did you start having more sensitivities, I don't know if you'd call them clear sensitivities.
I definitely, when I got pregnant, it was incredible how, like, before I had gotten pregnant, I was just having like a lot of synchronicity start happening, seeing numbers and seeing, like most people who begin to notice the spiritual side of life, but it's like, I never really got guided. I just always listened to my intuition anyway. So that was like, it enhanced. After I had that download and I got pregnant, I mean, that motherly intuition that is growing, when you're pregnant and then you have your baby, like it's incredible how much more amplified my gifts became once I became a mother. And it was like, first of all, I right now I'm 7 years past what doctors even thought I'd make it, I guess. And it's crazy. Once I hit that 20-year mark, and that's right around the time that this angel came to me with that download, it was right around the 20-year mark. And I always felt something is coming at the 20-year mark. Like, I felt like maybe this is it. Maybe I'm maybe I'll be crossing over this year or something. I don't know. But it's funny because it ended up being like a death and rebirth, because, the old me died away and I became a mother. So that is a death and rebirth, but there's been so many different spiritual experiences ever since I had the near-death experience. There's, a lot of stuff right now is coming full circle from that experience, so it's, as I go down my journey, I could see the significance of things so much more clear. You know what I mean? It's just clearer vision of, where I should go on my path, to get where I need to be. It's just, I think everybody's getting a little more heightened right now.
That's what it does seem like. But I think it's interesting though that you got into nursing, and how long ago did you incorporate the Reiki stuff? Because that seems to go hand in hand with.
Reiki, I started after I got Reiki 1 initiated after I had my son. I think it was 2018. And then the following year, I think within like 3 months, I got Reiki 2 attuned so I could do Reiki on my patients who are babies. I mainly work with babies. So that's like the best part.
Wow.
And it works beautifully on them because I can calm them down when they're teething. I don't got to give them Tylenol. I'll do Reiki on them. I've done Reiki on my patients after they have seizures. It's known to help the body to just calm down. The parents notice the difference. So I got into Reiki, the master teacher role the master teacher initiation I just did in June of last year, but it's finally kind of, it can take a while to integrate the energy depending on how much. So like that master teacher level of Reiki, I was like, oh my gosh, now it's like integrated and grounded. But I was led to Reiki by someone I know, gifted me a session, and that was the beginning of it all. And like now I have this Reiki practice. I mainly mainly work in home health. And so my patients, I work with them and I just use it when I can, where I can. It's been very helpful in my practice. But ever since 2020 and the trauma that, healthcare professionals underwent with all the COVID stuff, I just want to remind them too, that it's okay to ask for help, because we're always the ones that people come to, and it's hard when we need help. I think healthcare professionals have a hard time asking for help. So that's kind of my goal now, is to really focus in on just helping people to understand spirituality, and that it's innate in all of us. It's not.
Do you think this was part of your purpose? And I would wonder personally if part of the purpose coming back was to bring your son into the world.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I definitely. And I think I felt him, he was so close. And, like when you finally get to that goal, when you look back, you're like, I was so close, and I was very close to giving up. Like I was in a dark place. And so the memory of my ND saved me by reminding me, you got a huge second chance, huge, and then it's just, then that happened with the angel that came with the download. And then I brought my son into the world. So it was just, and then my son initiated me as a mother. So yes, I have a huge purpose. First of all, I'm his mother first and foremost. He comes first, but it should be, everybody, family should come first, but anybody, that I can help. And I am like that. It's not just a front, I do like to just, there's a lot of people I think that right now that don't know what to do. There's, especially with mental health and stuff like that.
Right.
And I think spiritual health is so important too, but gets forgotten about so often,
I'm curious if, did you know the whole time that this was called a near-death experience? I mean, you didn't know that at 13, I wouldn't think.
No, I didn't even really talk about it. Yeah, I didn't even really talk about it after I had that experience where I was hugged by an angel, which I believe was just the light dressed up with the person that I needed to see the most. It just changed my last memory of her, was that it was amazing. But I'm sorry, what was the question?
I was just curious if you knew that, that's a near-death experience, or did you not even think about it?
No,
on that level.
After I had that experience, I was guided to start looking up near-death experience. I don't know where I heard it, but it was probably 7 years ago that I started with the groups, and I met some people on the groups, and I just got rolling with that, and really befriending people I've never even met in person yet. But I mean, they're very important people to me, and it's through this group, and people started talking about the void, and I'm like, what is that? I start listening, and I'm like, that's where I was, because I had nothing.
You didn't even think that was okay.
I never ever spoke of it. I didn't think it was a big deal. And honestly, when I came out of that and I hit high school, I was like, I'm never gonna die. And I was just like, let's party. So my parents were like, they're not worried about me. I'm having a blast. And they would let me. It's really when I got into my adulthood, my 30s, my late 30s, mid 30s, that's where, it's harder. And that's when childhood trauma will come like a train and hit you, and you have to heal it. And I felt like that. I felt like I kind of had to heal it before I got to my son. And that's true. Mothers, they feel the need to heal trauma so that they're fully present for their child, so
your thoughts about death now?
I'm not,
no fear.
No, I mean, that's how I worked in the morgue in my early 20s. I worked with the county medical examiner, and I was an autopsy assistant. And the reason that I knew I was in the right spot is because I was Jen Dean, the Deaner. So an autopsy assistant, the actual name for it is Deaner. It's Deiner. I'm Dean.
Oh,
But I was like, see, it was like things like that. It's called a synchronicity, but I didn't know it was called a synchronicity, and I didn't think it was a big deal. I just knew I was right where I was meant to be.
right.
So, and that was interesting because I did have heightened clairs. Yes. So I went into this job like, I'm not afraid of death. It like, if anything, it's like mystical to me. Like I am all about death.
Yeah.
I've always been, I guess people look at that weird because there's such a taboo about death, but
Right.
there needs to be barriers breaking the taboo down, because it's like, it's actually a beautiful thing. It's hard to lose a person, but,
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely
It's
have no
us
fear
who
about that.
left behind that have the hard time. It
Yeah.
seems
Well,
like.
and that's the thing. It's like when I was during my near-death experience, I didn't have this body, so it was like, because I was in so much pain from going through chemotherapy treatments. And so I was fine with, I knew I was coming back. Like I didn't have a choice, because I know some people ask that, did I feel like I had a choice? And I say no.
Right.
Not when I was younger. I just knew I had to come back, like for my family. I just was afraid that they wouldn't be able to, get through it if they lost me.
Your poor parents. I just feel for them.
Even them seeing that happen, I can't imagine. And then they said, like you just started come back around, and everybody was like, wait a minute, so.
Wow. Just so many miracles surrounded with your life.
But I believe like there's so many miracles in everybody's life, but we don't look at them as miracles. Like everything can be a miracle, a daily miracle, like, I definitely feel like in the end, I came back with, heightened senses, definitely more clairsentient than anything, which is interesting because I didn't see the light, but I felt it. I felt the love. So my heightened clairsentience, like 4 months before I got pregnant with my son, I felt like I was pregnant. And I was like, where is this coming from? Because I wasn't pregnant. But we were like, all right, they did a scan. And on the screen, I saw my son, or I saw like a 20-week-old fetus, but I knew at this point, I'm like, all right, I'm definitely not 20 weeks. So I'm looking at the lady, and she's like, all right, you don't see that. I'm definitely seeing like a vision. So I just, okay. And that's what happens. I'll get him in my waking life sometimes.
Okay.
But it's always a message. So like, I knew he's coming soon. He's coming soon.
Wow.
And then my husband at the time got a sign. And I was like, oh, he's coming. We're going to, I don't know if I said he, but there was also a psychic that a family member went to who told us like a year and a half before we conceived our son that he was coming to us. I didn't really believe it, because I was like, I just didn't believe it. But it was crazy.
Wow. Well, Jennifer, would you mind sharing? Well, are you working on any current projects? I wanted to ask you that.
Right now I'm working on something for work. It's like an addition to my business. And I'll give you all the links. I do Mystical Mama, which is
I was going to ask if the listeners want to connect with you, how do they do that? So Facebook?
Yes, Facebook's the best. I have a website. It's heavenandearthhealing.net.
Oh.
And that's actually, I changed the name from Mystical Mama Healing to Heaven and Earth Healing, because I'm actually taking a course to become a certified cannabis nurse. So I can help guide people on where to start in the process of finding. So I go wherever I feel I'm needed. And like, I'm in New Jersey on the East Coast. It's not like West Coast with medicinal, herb.
I'm California. So yeah.
Right. It's so different. There's not the tools and stuff. And I just feel like this is like the perfect thing to do.
Wonderful.
Like certified cannabis nurse. And then obviously still with my Reiki practice, I'm a Reiki master teacher. So, you know, I can help people with Reiki or initiations. But yeah, mainly Mystical Mama on Facebook, and then heavenandearthhealing.net.
Fantastic. Before we have to wrap it up, I was just, I always like to leave my guests with sort of the last words, you know, any takeaways or any word of encouragement that you would want to share with us.
Yes. So I want to just say that I know there is a lot of people in the dark right now. Right now, I think with everything that has happened and everything we've been through, there's a lot of people who are having a hard time handling life. And sadly, the suicide rates have climbed, and they will, because, you know, a lot of people are in a dark place, but I just want to remind everybody that take it one day at a time. And like, there is always a light in the dark with you. Like, you're never alone. Even when you feel like you're most alone, that's when, you know, call out to God or your angels and just ask for the guidance to get you through your dark moments. Because the light is always there, and we're all shifting right now. So it's important to just keep going, keep that mentality of just one day at a time. And that's mainly my message is, you know, there's always a light in the dark. So don't feel alone, and always ask for help if you need it. Yes.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. I really appreciate you sharing your story with us and taking time to hang out with me.
Thank you so much.
And thank you to everyone watching. This has been Julie McVey with Unordinary Made Ordinary. And I hope you'll join us next time for another fascinating interview. And if you did enjoy this, please give it a thumbs up. And if you like this type of content, subscribe to the channel. And I hope you're all having a fantastic day or evening, wherever you are on the planet or off the planet. And we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.